Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the sixth. Sona, is this the sixth episode? Put you on the spot
Yeah.
there. I put you on the spot there. I think it is the sixth
I think
episode.
it's really funny that you think I'm keeping track considering I ask you every week. I do know the title of this is Cats and Dog.
Cats and Mouse. Cats and Mouse.
Shoot, Cats and Mouse.
So you got the number of episodes wrong, and you got
Shoot. What good am I?
oh, you're plenty good, Sona.
Thank you, Victor. I do not know what number episode it is, and I apparently do not know the title either.
It actually is episode 6. I see it in my notes. I somehow missed that. It wrote it in my notes. So there's 4 more episodes. Just so everybody knows, there's 10 episodes total. Things are obviously moving. Got a couple of shocking revelations here in this particular episode.
So fun.
Before we get to all that, a couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, Sona, back on Apple TV Plus just this week, 2 episodes this past Wednesday. Platonic is back. Did you get a chance to
No
watch
way.
it? It's back.
That's so interesting to me because the ending was very, not final, but it felt like it wasn't really open to a second season.
I'll let you know what's happening in this season is that we already set up the fact that the Rose Byrne character, can't remember the character names, but the Rose Byrne character had started to become a caterer. And we also have this fact that she's having a falling out, which they amend at the end of that season with the Seth Rogen character. And he's in a new romance with this woman who works at this corporate job that he's gotten. Well, the first 2 episodes, and I think this is going to be the entire season, is the preparation for the wedding. And of course, they get into a lot of shenanigans because there's a lot of logistics going on. And all I'll say is that, and maybe it remains to be seen how the season plays out. I found like the first maybe 5 episodes of season 1 absolutely hysterically funny.
Agree.
And then the rest of the season was nice, but not as
Agree.
hysterical as the first half of the season. And what I'll say about these first 2 episodes is that I think they're pacing themselves. First of all, the whole entire cast seems to be so comfortable in the characters now. It's a lot of fun to watch them all. And there's only maybe 1 or 2 really uproariously hilarious moments per episode. But I feel like maybe they're pacing themselves a little better this time. So very fun to see them back. And Seth Rogen is like an industry in and of himself on Apple TV Plus. Of course, he just did The Studio, which has the most Emmy nominations ever for a comedy series.
I did not know that. Good for him.
So popular and so funny. And meanwhile, of course, he's wrapping up this season of The Boys. And there's going to be at least 1 Boys spinoff on Amazon Prime. And he also has an animated series on Amazon Prime called Invincible, which was just like one of the top 20. It's been climbing every iteration. I think this past year it was one of the top 20 streaming titles in the world. He supposedly, it's a joke that he runs the studio in the show The Studio. He is a true power broker in Hollywood nowadays.
Amazing. Who would have seen that coming?
I would not have expected it. This pothead is one of the biggest players in Hollywood now.
Good for him.
Yeah. Going back to Platonic, incredible chemistry among the cast. A lot of fun. And do check it out.
I will.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Second thing I wanted to mention, Sona, was there was a show that was supposed to premiere on Stars. Stars dumped it and Netflix acquired it, apparently at bargain basement price. And it premiered pretty well in week 1 on Netflix, but then word of mouth caught fire, and this show is taking off like crazy. It's a show called Hunting Wives. Have you watched any of this?
I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
Same thing here. I've not watched any of this, but it seems like it just gets more and more in the headlines constantly. But this is the type. I was just curious to see if you had watched it, because this is the type of show that normally I avoid completely. But I thought you might enjoy parts of it because it is almost like it is tangential to reality TV. I think in a way, it's a kind of, you could imagine this being a reality TV show or a reality TV show set among these set of women. And basically the premise of the show, for anybody who doesn't know, it is this like MAGA, very overtly, this very conservative MAGA type society, I think in Texas, and someone comes in from the city, has moved into this, married into this enclave of women, and it turns out they're all lesbians. They're all pegging their husbands. it's like one
Wow.
crazy thing after another in every single episode. So this thing has had lots of memes because of some of the content, but and it's already been renewed for another season, of course. So it's something to check out if you like something that is apparently very horny and very soapy, but could be. I mean, obviously, people are enjoying it. Lastly, I saw Weapons last night, and I'll have a full review of that in my conversation with Darren later this week. He's also seen it. This is one of the best opening scenes of any movie recently. It's a horror film. It's from the maker of Barbarian. This script started a bidding war among a bunch of studios, and Warner Brothers won the bidding war. It looks like it's going to make almost $100 million on its opening weekend worldwide. It's one of the biggest openings for a horror movie in multiple years. And the trailer really caught fire. And you can pretty much, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the opening scene of the movie. And it's basically a girl narrating that one night at 2:17 in the morning, all the kids from
Yes,
one
I've seen
particular
this.
class,
Yes.
they basically ran outside and were never seen again. The filmmaking in this opening sequence is absolutely stunning. It's like one of the most chilling things you'll see. But what I'll say is, and you've probably been hearing this, that it is a horror comedy. It is not comedic until the very end of the film. And when I heard that the ending had the theater laughing out loud, I was questioning that, because the movie is extremely tense. And I will not spoil the end of this movie, but I will say that it is it's hilarious at the end because it is such an appropriate ending to the film. It's like a mousetrap coming together, and the audience that I saw it with was hooting and hollering. They were really having a blast
Really?
with this movie. So as grim as the content might seem, I'd say that it is going to make a whole lot of money, because it's one of those horror films that is so much fun to watch in the theater, especially with a bunch of people. Fun throughout, by the way. The early part is extremely suspenseful. There's a mystery. The story keeps rewinding itself and telling you the same events you've seen from a slightly different perspective, and then moving the story a little further forward. Yes. So for me, as you're watching it, and my little critique here, I'll have a lot more to say about this when we do the full breakdown with spoilers in the next conversation I have with Darren. But I think the movie is relatively insubstantial, and some people are trying to say it's deep. I think they're really bending over backwards to find some meaning in here.
See.
But what I'll say is that I think this movie is going to be a huge hit, not because of the deep thematics, but because the experience of watching it and being like, what is going on now? And constantly being surprised, and jump scares that are really effective. And then when the comedy comes, it is so satisfying. People, I mean, just as a roller coaster ride, it's a lot of fun. So I think, and I'd say, I know your aversion is to gore. I'd say there's very few scenes of extreme gore. I'd say there's probably like 2 moments, like really seconds on the screen, where you'd probably have to avert your eyes. But most of it you can watch. Like the edited version of this for TV would probably just snip away a few seconds of footage. I know your mileage may vary, but as long as you're prepared to look away once or twice, it is, in general, a very fun film to watch. Twisted fun, to be sure, but fun nonetheless. All right, speaking of twisted fun, Cats and Mouse, here we are. We're at the 6th episode of this season of the show. Before we get into the plot breakdown, how are you feeling still about the season now, Sona?
I'm loving it. I think it is so fun and a really fresh take on the whole Dexter mythology. I really, really am enjoying it. How about you?
Yeah, it's fun. I agree. I start feeling that, when they only released half the season to the critics, I do worry at this particular moment that, like a lot of seasons of Dexter, this is pretty much often the case, aside from maybe how perfectly plotted the first season was, the season after season, even the worst seasons of Dexter, you feel like, oh, they got it right this season. And then about halfway through, you're like, oh man, we are really far afield of where we started, aren't we? So, maybe we are. And I'd say that in this particular case, I think they're still not that far afield. They haven't completely lost the plot yet. But it does feel like maybe the setup is not going to be as good as the resolution. But I guess we're close enough to the end now. I'm definitely committed, obviously, to see it through. Okay, as the episode begins, Sona, do you like sweeping? Does sweeping make you satisfied? Does it quell your need to murder like
There
it does
is
for Dexter?
nothing about cleaning that I find satisfying. I know some people do feel that way. I do not.
Dexter does apparently feel like sweeping up leaves makes him feel better.
I do understand why that noise would be calming.
Yes, that's true. It's like a white noise machine.
Yeah.
So yeah, as he's sweeping early in the episode, he finds out that just 1 week after having that conversation with Blessing's mom, Blessing has died at home, just like she wanted to. And of course, this guy who's been around for 10 days or so gets invited to the wake. He calls up his son. I'm pretty sure that Dexter would know that a hoodie is not appropriate for the wake,
Yeah.
appropriate attire. But luckily, there are clothes left behind in hotels all the time. So Harrison comes in with a nice suit for him to wear. Perfectly fits him, by the way. No, not even an oversized jacket or anything.
Yeah, Harrison has a good eye. I also want to remark on the comedy of this season when Blessing explains to Dexter that his mom has passed, and Dexter says, "Death comes for us all." And then has
Yes.
this look on his face where like
Yes.
he knows immediately that that was not the right thing to say.
Apparently, all his platitudes work this week for in their own ways. Even this moment, I think, works a little bit for Blessing. Death comes, but that is very funny. That's a good call out. Is death comes for us all, and that kind of weird look on his face, like, did I say the right thing? Was a lot of fun. There's a lot of those scenes like that in this week,
Yes, there
particular
are.
episode. But it's a little touching, by the way. We see Ghost Dad, Ghost Granddad, I guess, at this point, Dexter and son, all lined up in front of the mirror and doing the whole rabbit goes over the hole, the rabbit goes under the hole, the rabbit goes through the hole mechanism or method of doing your tie. What did you think of this scene, this like dad moment, bonding moment?
Well, I've never had to learn how to tie a tie, but it does feel like a father-son bonding moment. And I even in that, as I was watching it, imagined my husband teaching my son to do this someday. And I also think, very much the point of this scene is the reflection in the mirror, right? At the
Yes, of
end with
course.
the three generations, which at the same time was kind of hokey, was also kind of
Sure.
sweet.
Absolutely. And I mean, the thematics of that is not in this season of the show, but even in this episode of this familial bond and how that family or that how that relationship grounds you, right? Like we see it here with Harry's what he gave Dexter, and we could talk about that in much more detail. What Dexter's trying to impart to Harrison, and of course, Blessing and the relationship with his mother too, and how she saved him perhaps from his darkest impulses as well. So I think that's all intentional here. I like when Harrison is talking about, oh, when I lost you the first time, remember that time I shot you in the chest, Dad? That was hard enough, but now I don't want to lose you again. And Dexter promises him, I'm not going anywhere. Can he keep this promise? What do you think, Sona? He might be
I
on the lam before you know it. And,
That's true. He could be on the lam. I was thinking about it in the context of being alive. And I thought, well, we've certainly seen that his ego has really built up, that, he thinks he can take on anyone. So I do think he believes he's not going to be killed. But that's an interesting point about him being on the run.
if he's endangering his son by sticking around. I mean, we
Right.
think about, we'll get around to it, obviously, but the police investigation is going to start honing in at some point on these two. Speaking of comedy, there's this whole, I got to warn you, Harrison, this is a very tight knit family. They're very close. Get ready for lots of sadness. And they come in on this, huge celebration of the grandmother's life. This is a very funny sequence. I like how people just walk up to him and they're like, hey, Dexter, how's the gunshot wound? Harrison asks him, how long have you been around? He's like, about 2 weeks. He's like, I've been here for 3 months and
Yep.
I don't know anybody. A couple of things here, right? First of all, how crazy is it? Dexter's always like so accelerated. We teased when we were talking about Dexter New Blood, how all of that season of the show happens in like 3 weeks. Harrison had like the most eventful 3 weeks of anyone's life ever. But the craziest part about it is to see that now here is Dexter 2 weeks in. He's committed multiple murders. He's met a bunch of serial killers. He's killed half of them. and even Dexter, I mean, and even Harrison, right? Just 3 months. 3 months ago, he shot his dad in the chest. And now he's a suspect in another murder.
I do like, from a story construction perspective, when they remind us or tell us how much time has passed, because I feel like that's something I'm always trying to keep track of.
That speaking of, I just saw the new Naked Gun movie, which the trailer did not make me laugh, but this movie is so funny.
Fantastic.
And they have a great joke in there where they have one of those montages where, they go on a date, they go away for the weekend, all these things happen to them. And then, it's like one of those montages of like how a couple falls in love, and then they're driving home afterwards and they go, wow, what a great weekend that was. It's like 4 years worth of events all in one weekend. At the funeral, by the way, that victim of Red's assault, another little bit of joke. He's like, hey, ladies love a scar. Turns out, see, it all worked out for the best. His trauma is all better. And then, of course, we have the giving away of the cats at the wake itself.
I love this. I kind of filed it away as like something that might be something I would want to do when I pass away.
You're going to have to collect a lot of cats before you get there.
Not cats, but I have accumulated a lot of seashells over the course of my life because I really, really love seashells. So maybe I will have somebody distribute shells on my behalf.
Did you have a particular cat that you liked best from this collection?
You know what I thought, living in a New York City apartment, that I would take the smallest possible cat I could find.
Dexter took a pretty big one.
That was substantial, that cat.
I do like when he has to speak and they're like, Dexter, please talk. You've known this woman for 2 weeks. You have spoken to her at least 3 times. What will you miss? And I like how he starts off with like, I got nothing. But of course, you know what he's going to miss? Some of that delicious food she used to make. And that is legit. He really is going to miss that food because he loves to eat. And he turns out to, the only conversation he had with her was about how she wanted to be home and die surrounded by her loved ones, which is something he just says because it's a fact. And apparently this serial killer really gets to this crowd.
Well, but something that occurred to me here, in keeping with, I think the larger themes of the show, if I'm not reading too much into it, which I could be. We have been told that Dexter is a sociopath and he does not know how to react to people or say the right thing or do the right thing or act in any way that is empathetic. And maybe that is true, but maybe not. Maybe that's what he was told he was. And sometimes when you get told you're something, especially by an authority figure like a parent, you accept that as true, but it's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I want to put a pin in that because there's a whole part of it. And I do want to circle back to that because we brought it up here multiple times in our conversation. And I do think, like you said, if we take the show seriously at its themes, and there's a lot of goofiness in the show for sure, but I do think that is a very intentional here for sure. And I do have that question. I literally have it in my notes. Is Dexter a sociopath ? And maybe we could dig into that when we get around to it.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying that there's not something wrong with him.
Sure,
there is something wrong with him.
At the funeral, by the way, Harrison runs into Blessing's daughter and she asks him, so what's next for you? Are you in college? He says, no, I just got my GED. And they're saying, well, what's next? What's up for you? What's next up for you? And he's like, I don't know, maybe college, maybe murder. And he doesn't actually say that. But he does. That does tie into something that happens shortly thereafter where he's at, what would you call it? Where they have just, they're handing out flyers for, it's not really a college fair, right?
Because it wasn't, right? Because there was another booth next to it that wasn't. Yeah.
I was trying to think of what that is, where they're just, obviously a college fair, you would see it, but it's just like, seems like it's just like a fair on this, like a street fair, and they're just giving out NYU flyers. And I guess it's much easier to get into NYU now than when you got in there, Sona.
I actually think it was much easier to get into NYU when I went there than it is
I meant
now.
in the show. It's much harder now to get into college
Yeah.
than it was back when we went, for sure. And I mean, I heard that just to get into Rutgers, New Brunswick here in New Jersey, you need a nearly perfect math score. It's like I went to MIT and I didn't have a perfect math score. So I think things are much more difficult now.
All
And
right. Well,
the average score for math at MIT right now is a perfect score. So
okay, but in fairness, we're really digressing, but your score was very close to perfect. No, our other friend had a
yeah,
perfect score
yeah.
twice.
Twice, I
Uh,
know.
yes, but I also want to go back just to before we go to the college situation. I also thought it was funny at this wake that when Harrison comes in, he's told the kids are all in the kitchen because Harrison is a fully grown
Yeah,
person at this point. And it reminded me of at Thanksgiving how I still sit at
with
the
the
kids'
kids,
table as a
right?
middle-aged woman with a child.
Well, you never grow up in your parents' eyes. That's always how it
It's
is.
so true.
Oh, but the sticker shock here too. Harrison doesn't know how college works. You're not gonna. No one has to pay that sticker price unless you're a multimillionaire. You just borrow the rest and hope it all works out in the long run.
Oh, cross your fingers.
You know, he's got a huge leg up though because his personal essay is going to crush.
Amazing.
I killed my serial killer dad. Oh, this guy's got to be a student here. Unless he starts killing people on campus, then that's not good. Going back to Dexter, the performance he's giving here when he's speaking, I like how it's to pretend to wipe tears from his eyes,
Yes.
but like I said, he didn't do too bad here. So once again, it goes back to the idea of like has this Pinocchio. There's a Pinocchio metaphor in multiple seasons of Dexter. Is he become a real boy at some point in the future? He's still trying. Okay. Meanwhile, Prater is very curious as to where Dexter is and where is everybody. By the way, where my serial killer conclave is not working out the way I hoped. And speaking of which, Dexter's not doing a very good job of keeping up appearances. He has abandoned Red's apartment. Charlie's there looking for him. The food is rotting in the sink. He didn't even clean up after himself. He should have definitely tried to get in there again.
I mean, the rotten milk, I feel like the whole apartment would stink, would it not?
Yeah, as soon as she walks in there, she's going to smell it, right?
You would think.
Especially because it's not a big apartment. And this is when Prater calls up and says, "I'm right outside." And once again, Dexter's supposedly so smart in this particular episode, no less, but not so smart, where he's like, "Oh my God, he found me. They tracked me down." First of all, they could very easily track him down. Prater needs to have more than one person tracking these people around the city to, he wants to keep up appearances, right? He doesn't want people to know that he's funding these serial killers. Apparently, he's relying on Charlie for all of this, but it turns out, of course, he's not there. He's at Red's apartment. And Dexter just like, well, now that you know where I am, I've moved. I'm hiding out. But once again, Ope invites Prater to find out where he's actually staying, especially because it's not that hard to find them, considering that someone else tracks him down by the end of the episode. Meanwhile, the police officers are like, this is strange. We caught Lady Vengeance, but this doesn't sound like vengeance. They talk to this loser who she almost murdered. And the story all starts falling apart. It's not her MO. Our favorite detective, Staying Alive Wallace, doesn't buy it, but her partner starts to convince her, well, the watch is there. Maybe she's changing things. You never know. But then, of course, Angel swoops in. And we had talked just last week on the fact that, well, Angel must have shared all this information with them, but apparently no, he's been just teasing them for weeks now. And he's like, now I'm finally going to.
Time. What did they talk about?
What did they talk about? Exactly. He's just like, here's my card. And I think you're going to see some suspicious murders around town. I'll be back with more information. But whatever that was, apparently. And of course, what he's saying, to the show's credit, what he's saying does seem preposterous. But then when she goes, oh, and by the way, his son is Harrison. And she's like, oh my God, that's my prime suspect in this murder. Well, that's too much of a coincidence. She's not going to let that go.
Yeah, that was a real dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. And she didn't even need to have Staying Alive playing for her to start connecting these dots.
Her partner just wants to go home and have dinner, and he gets stuck in
He's just like, I don't want to have I don't want to, I just want to believe the case is closed.
Yeah, this is fine.
This is
Close
good
enough.
enough. She's definitely a serial killer. The person got, yeah, we got her. That's okay. Let's just leave it at that. No one's crying over this, sex offender being murdered. Is Angel the best cop around here? I don't know. Staying Alive seems to know her stuff, and at least she didn't believe all this, which, I mean, to be totally honest, if this is your case and this falls in your lap, I mean, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that this is indeed the killer, right? Like of course, the giant question is, how did the watch get there? And Angel still can't answer that one. He's like, I don't know how the watch got there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends how busy this particular homicide department is.
This is true. This is true.
Right? Like if you've got files piling up, I think you would be like, you know what? We've ticked enough of the boxes here. Let's move on to the next open case. But I guess if you have time on your hands.
New York's murder rate is down like another 25% or something.
Yeah, it's not that high.
It's crashing. I mean, it's already relatively low for a large city specifically, but way down. Although I have to assume that it's upticked this month with the serial killers in town.
Yeah, I mean, if her area is the Lincoln Center area where the Empire Hotel is located, I believe that would be an exceedingly low murder rate.
They have like 0 murders per year on average, and there's 2 in a week. So
yeah, she's probably just psyched to have something to do.
That's true. Back at where do we call this, Prater's mansion in what part of town is he in again?
Well, when Dexter exited the party, that first party, he came out in Times Square, but right. That seems one of those incongruent things that you aren't. I just don't feel like we're really supposed to believe he's located in Times Square.
Regardless, even if he's a couple avenues off, a gated mansion in near Times Square is a very expensive real estate, as I think Dexter himself points out at some point in last week.
I mean, yeah, the place was amazing.
And we get to spend a little more time with these serial killers. We find out that Gemini has quite full of himself. This Gareth is his actual character name. And he's like, I don't trust Mia not to talk. We shouldn't let girls into the He-Man Women Haters Club over here.
I was about to make the same reference.
And poor Mia. She's the only woman, and she can never fit in with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Lowell's dead, of course. Dexter says, well, maybe he left town because the heat is on. Not a bad excuse. And I'm sure these serial killers do a pretty good job of keeping low. But they all decide that, yes, Prater decides as well that it's probably best to dispatch with Mia because he doesn't want to give himself away either. And of course, poor Uma has got to go fix this issue as well. I love her, Uma Thurman's serious eyebrow acting here when she goes to see this guard at this underground betting establishment of some kind, gambling establishment. And what did you think of this? After that, we see again, maybe the third time we've seen this over the course of this season. She goes and visits her mom. I think it's her mom, mm-hmm. who is comatose. And she's like, you had to see what I had to do today, Mom. I don't know how the whole mom thing is going to pay off. Although maybe there's the thematics of, having a good and bad parenting examples, but we don't know if she's a good or bad mom until so far. But there is another ghost mom here to go along with Dexter's ghost dad. Dexter, meanwhile, goes and stalks Gareth after this meeting. And I love the fact, by the way, that, this whole idea that we're supposed to think that Dexter's so on the ball, and he's pretty proud of his own IQ here as well. But the fact that has not even Googled Gemini until he's following him down the street. He should have done his research ahead of time. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I think he was so put off by the narcissism that in that moment he decided that he couldn't stand being around that guy any longer.
But like the first day they met, when they had dinner the first time, wouldn't you be like, I should brush myself up on these guys, especially if I plan to kill them, should know a little bit about them first.
Yeah, that's fair.
He only researches one at a time. He's like, okay, I'll research Lowell, then I'll kill Lowell, then I'll research Mia, and then I'll try to think about killing her. I won't actually kill her. I'll just
prioritizing.
Exactly. He can only do but he says he's good at multitasking. I don't know. I don't think he's doing such a great at multitasking. And of course, this is like they're planting a seed here that we should have all seen coming, especially because of the Gemini killer. But he leaves a note in the book for somebody. Who could it be? Who could it be that he's leaving this note for in a book about the Gemini killer in the library or in the bookstore, I guess? It's weird that this is happening in a bookstore, especially because we had the series You. It seems like they're doing a little too much of head faking in the direction of that show, which kind of, maybe the baton's being passed back and forth between these two shows.
Interesting point. I hadn't considered that. I will say that is a very renowned bookstore in Soho.
What if somebody else happened to pick up the serial killer book with the note for Gemini?
Well, that's why the note was so generic. You couldn't make heads or tails of what it was.
But you're not passing the note at that point, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
The other one doesn't even know when they're supposed to meet, which apparently was kind of what happens. And after this, Dexter heads back home. What do you make? I don't even know what that whole scene with Blessing freaking out about too many bags of ice. I don't know why that scene's in the show, but it does allow him to go downstairs with a bag of ice back to his apartment. And who's there? Dun, dun, dun. Gemini himself, or one of Gemini, half of Gemini is there. And this is a very funny scene. Just the whole idea that he's like, I'm so smart. Why? And I guess Dexter is smart enough to know, like, this guy's weakness is his own ego. And he's like, well, the reason I was following you is because I'm such a fan, and all of this back and forth. And I especially love the whole idea that he makes him a gin and tonic, happens to have the ice with him, of course, and puts the knockout fuel into the other glass that he presents to him. Because in the back of his mind, he's thinking, well, this guy's so smart, he's not going to take that glass. I was hoping it would play out like the scene from The Princess Bride, where it's just like, but then you would.
Yes.
And then it would have the same solution where Dexter goes, well, I just made myself immune to it. So I never can knock myself out.
It's so funny, though, because I was trying to keep track of, okay, it's the drink on the right that has the stuff in it. And so now this is Dexter's right hand. I actually was trying to follow along.
Did it work out, or was there a blooper?
It did. It did track. And I also like just a fun bit of acting I felt from Michael C. Hall here with the Dexter trying to build up the guy's ego, Gemini's ego even further. And you could tell he was annoyed at himself for even having to say it. But, it was part of his plan. I thought all of it was very fun to watch.
Gemini was relatively, wasn't too cruel to him, where he said, well, you're not number one, but like number two at best, he says. It's number two. But that's not, I didn't completely disparage him. A couple of interesting things here. I like when he says, who did you leave the note for? And he says, me, which is not necessarily not true, right? Because he's leaving it for the Gemini killer, right? Just happens to be that there's two of them. And also he talks about why does he kill?
It still bothers me. I feel like that's like wordplay taken a step too far for me, but I get the point.
I mean, on this show, that's subtle. So I'll take it for here. I also like the point he makes about when Dexter asks him why is he killing them in pairs, and he actually sees it as a kindness because they don't have to die alone. Which, of course, we have that thematically here as well. That the mother didn't want to die alone when lying in the hospital by herself. We also have Uma Thurman's mom potentially dying by herself in the hospital right now. So in a weird sort of way, very twisted way, Gareth thinks that he is giving them some kindness. And of course, he kills as a pair. So he sees something in this Gemini bond between the two characters. And I think that is something that we do circle back to thematically when you think that there is this pair bonding that we're talking about, this mentor-mentee, whether that is the Blessing's mom or whether it's Dexter's dad or whether it's Dexter now to his son. So I think they're definitely trying to make that connection here. I mean, of course, it's completely
so many
twisted.
References to killing a parent and a teenage child.
Right, exactly. Which, of course, then would potentially, and that's maybe we could speculate that at the end, but you obviously have a teenage son and a father who could potentially be victims to the remaining Gemini killer. So that's definitely something that's in the cards.
Yeah,
for sure.
At least twice they referred to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A couple of very funny parts here, of course, is Gemini goes down very hard, very quickly. He's a lightweight when it comes to this stuff. But I also like the fact that Dexter's like, who's number one now?
Yes.
A little celebrating. And of course, has to wrap him up in a hurry because Blessing comes down. He throws him into the tub. Very inconvenient, of course. Blessing showing up right in the middle of a murder, no less. And Blessing, again, knowing Dexter for a very short period of time, has a lot to tell him. Let me tell you about when I was a boy soldier in Sierra Leone.
Oh, this was a bleak story. Yikes.
Yikes, right? Holy cow. He had mentioned during the wake for his mom that his mom had saved his life, and he's explaining himself. And this is obviously very heavy handed. And wow, bringing this certain context into this silly show is probably not appropriate, but regardless. But there's like the punctuation mark on this whole confession he has is that his mom always taught him to never bring the darkness into my home. You must keep the darkness separate. And then I love the internal narration that Dexter has is, I need to be more careful. I need to protect Harrison from this. And then 2 seconds later, he goes, where's your ibuprofen? And not very careful. He's like, oh yeah, it's in the bathroom.
Seriously.
Take your own advice, buddy. You must be more careful. There's a dead body in your apartment.
Okay, but also, I don't know if, again, I'm reading between the lines too much, but wasn't there something foreboding about this idea of the darkness and a connection to the dark passenger? And I mean, obviously, what he said was very bleak, so he could just be referring to that, but it just felt very foreshadowy or foreboding to me. I don't know.
The music changes, like this like very ominous music comes in, and like you said, his tone, his own tone in telling the story is like he's warning Dexter of something.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows. No, I can't imagine that'd be the case. He's a serial killer too. Everyone's a serial killers all the way down, as we said.
That's the real secret of New York City.
Everyone's a serial killer.
Full of serial killers here.
But Blessing does not pull back that curtain, luckily, because otherwise Dexter would have had to kill everybody at the party.
Yikes.
It's a house full of, look at the murder rate now in New York City. A whole house of people murdered at a wake. I also like Ghost Dad there is like, you see what he said about, his mom helping him out? Like me helping you out, Dex. Dex is Harry version of aspect of his personality is very full of himself. The next day, by the way, so we actually had Harrison babysitting as this is all happening in parallel. What did you think about that moment in there where this his friend, this mom that's also his love interest, like laughs at him because he says he wants to get the hospitality?
I felt so bad for him. I mean, I understand why she meant not that he's not capable of it, but that maybe his personality isn't the right fit, because she had commented before on how he should approach people with a certain kind of smile, right? So I do understand where she was coming from, but I still felt bad because, he was expressing some sort of aspiration and she dashed it so quickly.
But when we met him at the beginning of the season, he seemed to be killing it, right? Everybody was asking for him to run him errands. He seemed to be like the guy who you turn to. So I'm not sure where this negative opinion she came up with comes from.
Yeah, that's a fair question.
Regardless, of course, this is all just to see him have this violent fantasy of killing the landlord because he is asking for rent and she's trying to hold off the rent until he fixes up the mold situation in the apartment. And he thinks about killing the guy. And this makes him feel so guilty that when he meets with Dexter the next day for their breakfast meeting, he says, I did it again, Dad. Dexter's like, what do you mean? I thought about killing somebody else, but I wanted to. And he's like, that's okay. People want to kill people all the time, which is kind of true. What makes you not a sociopath is not killing them instead of actually killing them. But this is actually an interesting scene, and maybe we can circle back to that whole conversation we had previously, that like last week, where like, Dexter is ready to give Harrison the code. He tried in the previous season, and he's trying to do it again here. You're like me. I'm going to train you. But he doesn't do that. He says, no, you didn't act on it. You're more like Deb. And, you're noble, even though you screw up, everybody does. And he, going back to the idea that he is maybe not as sociopathic as he thinks. He doesn't see the world just from his perspective. He does the right thing. He tells Harrison to not act on it and to not give into it. So it is an interesting reversal from what we saw earlier this season.
And a difference in how he was raised, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The best thing to do with those urges.
I do like what he talks about Deb. And of course, Harrison has a little memory of Deb from when he was younger. and says, "Oh, she never messed up." And he's like, "Oh, she messed up all the time." Yes, she did. She messed up a lot. And then we get to the end of the episode, and shock number one, Mia is dead. They actually killed Mia off.
Okay, were you shocked by this? Because I said it last week
You
when
did
we
say it last
talked.
week.
They are going to kill her.
I didn't. I'm not surprised that they killed her at some point in the show. I just assumed these guest roles would have bigger parts just because you have them in the show. But we have seen now. We're like, wow, how did they get all these people for the show? They're only in a handful of scenes, all these people. So that's
they
kind
only
of
had to pay them for one episode.
Exactly. I mean, she just has to lay on the floor dead in this particular episode.
I mean,
I guess she was in two.
Says
right?
your stay will be short. It's right there.
Good point. Good point. I do have questions as to how great this guard is that he was able to murder her, because this girl seems like no one's going to get the drop on her.
Yeah, I don't know the logistics of how this happened. Maybe if the Jeffrey Epstein videotape existed, I would know.
We would know the actual mechanism this happens. She wasn't even in an isolated cell. She was just open to the public, but somehow it happened.
And as much as I love this show, and I love my previously on scenes, how I love the previously on scenes. Did we really need the flashback of Uma Thurman meeting the guard to give him the money? Like, we saw him 20 minutes ago.
This show is so funny where that happened. Something else happens in the show as well. I think it was maybe with the card where he's saying to Gemini, like, to remind us, like, oh, remember the card for the other person? This is the other person. I'm like, yes, I watched the show too. It's very funny. Like, it's really built so that you don't have to pay that much attention as you're watching the show.
I mean, I guess I really do appreciate it all in all, but this one made me particularly laugh because I historically, and you know this about me, have like a face blindness for certain actors where I'm kind of like, I don't know, is that the same other guy with brown hair? Like, could be I don't know if I'm looking at different people or the same people. This particular guard was very distinctive looking. Even I remembered him from previously.
Yes, he's a very distinctive looking person for sure. And then,
but I don't mind a little hand holding. It just made me laugh.
Yeah, I just accept it at this point. And then, of course, shock number two here is the revelation when they're getting on their whirlybird that Dexter's assuming, well, one more from the party is not going to show up, and it's going to look even more suspicious. But of course, hiding in plain sight, like so many things in this show have been, Gemini is two. There's two, of course, a twin. That's why he kills twins, or kills in this format. And the other Gemini shows up. So do you think Gemini knows what happened to his brother, or what do you think?
Well, the look he gave Dexter when he sat down was kind of contemptuous, but from what we've seen of his personality, that
could be normal,
might
right?
just be how he always is. So it's hard to say. I feel like that much time hasn't passed for him to put all this together. So I feel like he doesn't know yet. What do you think?
I mean, one version of it is that he doesn't know. The other version of it is that he does know, but he wants a killing partner, and he can motivate Red, who he thinks is Red. Or maybe he's figured it out. Maybe he's the smart brother, because the other one doesn't seem that smart. So maybe he's a smart brother who's looking for an upgrade, and that could be it. And the reason I mentioned that is because I came back to this idea of like the ghosts of Christmas past for Dexter in this show. And it's like, does he want to have that buddy who he kills with, like Lowell, and like who's the character I'm thinking of where they were buddies in season 3?
Jimmy Smits.
Jimmy Smits' character, right? Whatever his character name was. That does he want a buddy to kill with? Nope, doesn't want that. Does he want to kill with his girlfriend, which of course he's done as well? Nope, doesn't want to do that. Does he want to kill with his brother? Going all the way back to season 1? Probably not, because we have this 2 brothers killing together. And then, of course, we have who's left, which is this ponytail killer. And that, of course, is Trinity, right? Is the perfect suburban house husband who is actually a serial killer.
I love what they're doing with that character, by the way.
He just showed up from a jog.
He has done so many unspeakable things, but I love this portrayal of him as like a suburban dad on vacation in New York, living his best life.
He's not even dressed up. He's just like, oh, well, I was at the park when they called me, so I just came like this. Maybe the actor was just like, I'm not putting on a costume. I'm just rolling out of bed and showing up. I only have to do 2 lines in this whole entire episode. I'm just dressing like this. I guess next episode will be the one where he actually gets to speak more. And of course, the biggest revelation for me on this whole entire show, or rediscovery, I should say, is that the song that plays at the end is Blood Makes Noise by Suzanne Vega. That I'm like, oh my God, that song disappeared off the face of the earth. I have not heard that song in 30 years. And I'm like, oh my God, how did that's actually a pretty good song. But it's just one of those things that was popular back then, which just disappeared off of pop culture, disappeared from it. So yeah, we can have some speculation here at the end. So we have, and then talk about these themes as well on the parenting. But Gemini, how much does he know? I think we kind of touched on that. And then I wanted to get a feel for how you think the pieces that are left here might fit together for the conclusion of the season. But before we get there, we can dig a little bit more into this question that I had a couple times over the past couple weeks. Is Dexter a sociopath? I just wonder, because if he has the wherewithal to consider somebody else's emotional state, or to even not manipulate his son into doing what's convenient for him to assist him with his murders, etc., that in and of itself seems to indicate he may not be. I mean, I'm not saying this show is accurate to actual psychology, but I just mean that it seems like he's maybe not the sociopath he paints himself as.
Yeah, and I think this is the question that was running through all of the original Dexter is, is this who you really are, or is this who you have been told you are? And so now that's who you believe yourself to be, which I think most of us can identify with on a much smaller scale than this. But, I think it's a really interesting question about the different paths that Dexter could have taken had he been parented differently.
My parents never told me to kill anybody, but then again, I mean, they never told me not to kill anybody. But then again, they probably assumed that I hadn't or wouldn't. Little did they know. Yeah, but I mean, it is definitely thematically what's happening here in the show, where you think about.
I mean, listen, to your point,
Yep.
I think most of us, I would wager, I guess, have not seriously felt like killing anybody. I mean, at least let me just only speak for myself. I have never truly felt like killing anybody. I've maybe wanted to throw things sometimes when I was younger and I had like less impulse control, but I've never really felt a violent streak. I do think I'm on an extreme end of the spectrum. I think most people maybe have at least an urge to hit somebody. I don't really have that. But my point being, there is something wrong if you have the urge to kill somebody. I think it's fair to say.
Yes, especially seriously, right? I mean, I think that people have these dark fantasies of someone they can't stand and terrible things happening to them. But there's a difference between plotting it, for example. Like if you start following people around and planning it, even if you don't do it, you are severely mentally disturbed, right? So if anybody of you out there meet that criteria, please go and seek.
Yes, seek help. So I think if you have that urge to the point that you think you could actually carry that out, there is something going on with your brain chemistry that needs to be addressed, whatever we label it. But is it inevitable that you must act on that urge? I don't think so, or at least I would like not to think so.
I would hope not. And yeah, I mean, it's touched here multiple times when you think about how Harry might have trained Dexter, but before we potentially just think that Harry blindly wants to train his kids to be serial killers, he did not do that with Deb. Obviously, a different version of trying to do the right thing in that particular instance.
Yeah, and like I said, in the prequel for this Original Sin, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They do add some shading to this so that it doesn't seem like Harry just immediately went to the idea of, well, I have no choice to train my son to kill other serial killers. It does at least try and raise the idea that Harry felt he had no choice after trying to find other outlets for this urge. I still think he could have tried harder, though.
Did you ever finish watching that Dahmer Netflix series?
No, it was too upsetting.
It is upsetting, yeah. And that's not a perfect series by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a particular episode that focuses on the dad. And I find it interesting, even if you want to just watch that on in and of itself, or audience out there, if you want to watch it, and almost think about it as a mirror image to what's happening in Dexter, because the father is seeing behavior in his son and he's trying to cope with it. He's trying to talk to him about it, and then it eventually just is trying to ignore it. But of course, we know how badly that turned out. So
Yeah.
potentially, it is maybe this show is not to be taken seriously. Honestly, not in this regard. I would say for sure, it's not really that serious at trying to analyze what makes a serial killer a serial killer. But it is interesting to think that if Harry honestly saw that he was going down this route and there was no turning away, that at least he could weaponize it in a way that it could be, I guess, in his own mind, productive. Or he'd have to kill his son or turn him in, and maybe that was too difficult for him.
Yeah, and I think maybe your view of this type of behavior when you work in law enforcement is different than
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
average person who maybe doesn't see the darkest parts of society.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other interesting aspect to it. You think about people like I know people who are in law enforcement and then they see kids and then they overreact because they think like these kids are showing these signs. Or maybe even more so, I know people who are educators who in their classroom, they're like taught that there's certain behavioral tics and particular things that could be indicative of particular issues. And then like a doctor that specializes in something, they start seeing it everywhere, like everyone's behavior is abnormal. And so maybe his dad overreacted in a way. But yeah, I guess that's the question that the show maybe wants to grapple with at some point, is that is
Certainly an interesting question.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it does toy with it here and there, but never that deeply because it wants to focus on being a pretty silly, crime procedural. And it breaks the fantasy too, right? Of course, the reason the show is so popular and has been going on for decades is because the fantasy of a serial killer who kills other bad guys is like Batman that kills people, right? And people
Mhm.
want that to be the case, and they want it to be more simplified. If you're thinking that you're watching this person kill off these other people that you really think are terrible, as you watch many, many years of these shows, and the whole time you like, God, that is a really despicable killer the whole time. Obviously, it ruins the fantasy, but it does try to play with these themes here and there. Oh, and of course, like I mean, the key feature here is being a good parent, regardless of that criteria, because it's you have this real world analog of these boys that were these child soldiers who obviously
Yes.
severely damaged psychologically by their experiences, and the idea that you can be saved even from that situation by a loving mom. Okay, so where do you think the pieces of this show are going to fall into place? Do we have Gemini there? Is he going to? He's not going to kill Dexter. I don't think anyone's going to kill Dexter. They can't. Here's the funniest thing about it: if this wasn't in this certain cycle of the show, you could have Dexter die at the end of the show, but there's no way. They just tried to do that the last time where this is really killing Dexter. Could you imagine they're really
They
killing
tried to do
Dexter?
it twice.
I mean, if they killed him at the end of this show and he comes back again, it has to be like what Harrison said last week. It has to be like Jason coming, like literally coming out of the grave, like in Friday the 13th, chapter 6 or whatever it is. Like they have to go full on. He is an unkillable monster. Because at this point, you can't just have him like luckily survive yet another killing.
Hysterical.
So, assuming that, of course, Dexter's safe, we assume Harrison is not going to be killed. If they killed Harrison off, that would be a trauma that he would have to deal with for the rest of his life. So, that is
For
a
sure.
direction the show could go in, but I feel like that's too dark for this show to go in that direction. So, does Dexter kill Prater and then Charlie comes after him? You think that's a possibility?
I mean, they raised again that what we've been saying from the beginning is you've got this elite group of serial killers, and all of a sudden, by one, stuff is
Right.
happening to them. So it's pretty clear who it is. It's the newest person. So it might be that, yeah, he's got to go straight to the top.
Right. He definitely wants that database of all these active serial killers that Prater knows about. That would be, a great starting point for him to continue to kill these, to stalk and kill these serial killers in future seasons.
Can't you just ask ChatGPT?
to find them? Just give me, who are the 10 most active serial killers in America?
I feel like ChatGPT does everything at this point. I never use it. I know you do sometimes.
I do. How many how many active serial killers were there down in the Miami area back when that show was on the air? This is like Law and Order SVU, by the way. That's the impression. Everybody thinks that there are thousands of murders a year in New York City because of all the Law and Order shows. Because there's like at any time on that show, there's dozens of active serial killers. There's dozens of active serial rapists, and there is the day-to-day people getting killed all the time on that show, and that's just like those two investigators. So yeah, not reality, people, not reality. So does my last thing in the notes here is like, does Dexter and Harrison head out with that database of all the other serial killers? Which of course, not only would that just be like, here's their names, they know where they live, right? Charlie's done her investigation, I would assume, on a lot of these folks. And road trip for Dexter and Harrison. Harrison can't hang around New York City with Staying Alive and Angel on his tail.
Fair point.
So maybe that sets us up for season 2. So that leaves us 3 more episodes to go. 4 more episodes.
4.
To go. So the week after Labor Day, we will wrap up this show. And then for anybody out there who is curious, I think, Sona, our next watch is going to be Task, which HBO has just for September. That's all they said, September. But I have a feeling it has to be early in September because the new Stephen King adaptation, the It Welcome to Derry show, is coming sometime in October, obviously before Halloween. So for them to fit Task in there, it's going to have to be pretty early in September. So I think we're going to go directly from Dexter to Task, which I'm very much looking forward to. That looks very good. And like I said to previously when we introduced that show, full circle for us because we have Brad Inglesby, who was a showrunner for Mayor of Easttown, of course, making that show now. Also wrote Echo Valley, not as great as Mayor of Easttown, but not terrible. It
had its moments.
Yeah, it had its moments. So that all remains to be seen. So that's coming in the near future. And of course, starting this week, we are going to be discussing the new FX Hulu series, Alien Earth. Is your husband an Alien fan by chance?
I think he has seen them and enjoyed them. Is it a fandom? I don't think he's part of the fandom.
Not part of the fandom? Okay. But he's seen most of the films?
I believe so.
So yeah, he may appreciate this. It is a new Alien series from the creator of Fargo, the same showrunner, Noah Hawley. And early reviews are very positive. I missed my chance, Sona. I didn't check my email in time. I could have seen the episode 1 in a movie theater for free on Monday, and I missed my chance. I know. Would have been great to see it in the movie theater for sure, especially surrounded by fans, but missed my chance. I'll have to watch it on TV like everybody else. There'll be 2-episode premiere this upcoming Wednesday. And of course, Sona, catch up on Platonic. There's 2 episodes now. Very fun. And there'll be 3 episodes.
I definitely want to.
All right, great. Oh, and of course, one recommendation, you guys may not want to go see Weapons, although it's a lot of fun, I have to say, but you may like watching the horror movie together. A fun couple watch. I think that has an ending that is a conversation starter. You're kind of like, is that good for them or bad for them? And so it's an interesting take, but another thing that people might want to catch up on.
Both of those movies sound interesting to me. I don't know that I would see them in the theater, but I'm definitely interested in seeing them.
I think of the 2, if you're going to see them in the theater, you should see Weapons in the theater because it is one of those movies, like seeing a comedy, like seeing The Naked Gun, by the way, the Naked Gun movie in the theater, because there are probably 5 jokes per minute in that movie, and 90% of them are actually funny. But the way that is in a theater, like, they just keep compounding, and someone in the theater is always laughing at least one of the jokes. So when like a big joke hits, everybody's like, it's literally like your stomach hurts. You're laughing so hard at some of the jokes. There's a chili dog joke. I'll just say chili dog. That's it. That is so funny. Just remembering it makes me laugh. It's so funny. Anyway, so this is yeah. So check that out too, everybody. By the way, comedies in movie theaters, such a rare thing, and this one is a minor hit, not a huge hit, but considering they don't even make them anymore, I was just happy to see that movie do pretty well. And I know, of course, you love your boy
Liam
Taken.
Neeson.
Liam Neeson, you love Liam Neeson, and
I love Taken, that's for sure.
that's what's so great about this, by the way. Liam Neeson is perfect for this type of role. It's not like Will Ferrell or something where he's kind of winking at the camera. He is so deadpan. It's like he does not know he's not in on the joke. It is so funny. And Pamela Anderson, by the way, right. Who is also very, very funny.
Well, you know, they're dating now.
I know. That's the rumor.
I love it.
So they look very sweet together for sure. And almost age appropriate, almost. All right. Thanks again. And we will touch base next week when we'll see how Dexter gets out of this pickle.
I can't wait to find out.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.